directions have been presented here the way I did it earlier today. But there are 4 more directions that you can think about. Like in John's meditation, we talked about connecting straight down into the earth. You can also then connect straight out into the universe to your favorite star. And then feel that energy going through you, up and down. And then you have the energy of everything coming to you, all the inspirations that are coming to you throughout the day that the universe is presenting to you. And then you have what you give out. What is your contribution to the universe as well? So you have 8 different directions that you can relate to. And once you've done all that, suddenly you have a place in the universe. You have a place in creation. And you have positioned yourself at this particular point in geography. And it's a very grounding and very nice experience to do. So, anyway, that was that. Then I'd like to read to you guys from I'm honored to be chosen to read today, being Mother's Day. I am the mother of 4, and I'm the grandmother of 2, so I guess I'm entitled. This is the book I wrote, which is called Rituals in Sacred Stone. And it's the book about the life of Mary Magdalene. And it took me a while to write this. It's a 500-page big tome thing, and I have it for sale if anybody wants to buy it. This is the one I read from last time, which people laughed good about, and that's good. I have a couple of copies of that one too. The one I want to read for you guys today is the first chapter in this, which is more of a little introduction into how I got started writing about this. Writing about Mary Magdalene is kind of a little tricky because there isn't that much written about her from before, and you have to study a whole bunch of things that are around her before you kind of get to where she's at. The biblical stories don't give us very much to work on, and the church over the years certainly has obscured more than they've helped. So I had to kind of put all that aside a little bit. I studied a lot about the Roman Empire. I studied the Egyptians. I studied anything else I could get my hands on about her. And some other good people have written some good stuff. But then things started to happen to me. Once I put my foot into that this is what I want to write about, and the universe have been poking me saying, we would very much like you to write this. And be careful what you promise the universe to do. Because after I've been listening to this for a while, I said, yes, I'll be happy to write the book about Mary Magdalene, but I have this full-time job. And they promptly have me fired. They're certainly going to get me out of that situation pretty quickly. So anyway, luckily a good man showed up in my life and invited me to live with him, so he's been taking good care of me, and he's a good guy. But I had to travel to put my foot down. Again, this thing about, right behind me, the sense of knowing where your footing is in the geography. And feeling because okay, if every thought is a vibration, every action we do has its own frequency and vibration, that means that everything around is also picking that up. Every rock will vibrate with that, whatever we put out. So I had to go to these geographical places and put my foot in the sand and feel what it would tell me. So it took me to France, because that's where she was in exile in the end. And I had to start somewhere. I had been to Egypt, so I had some sense of that. I did not feel called to go to Judea, even though that's of course a big part of the story. I felt that I knew enough about that through what I read. But France I had to go to. I hadn't really been there. I needed to put my foot down and I needed to feel the stones. So promptly when I come there, I arrive with great enthusiasm in Paris. Backpack on my back, train ticket in my hand. And I come off a train in downtown Paris, and I know I had to walk across the city to get to the other train station to take a train south. I just arrived from the airport. And I'm all enthusiasm when I'm walking out the door from the train station and it's pouring rain. Not just dripping, it's pouring, absolutely pouring. So I go back inside and I take off my big rain poncho and I said, okay, this is not going to stop me, so I started on my walk. So I end up in this church in the middle of Paris. This is my story right here. This is the very first little chapter in the book. And it's actually intended to be part of a third book in the series about this. But it gives a little insight about what happened to me that changed the course of the book. I came into this big church and there was a display there. I'm describing it more, but I don't know already what it is. It was the Shroud of Turin. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that image, but you might have seen it in various ways. And I am familiar with the image and I recognized it right away, but I didn't realize it would have such an effect on me. So here's a life-sized image. It's a slide inside a big marked, display case. And yeah. So anyway, so here I am. I'm writing it about as if she's Ellen, but it's actually me. She noticed the large upright display case as she rounded a pillar on her way out of the church of St. Sulpice in Paris. It was a backlit slide image, life-sized, of an almost naked man. He looked like he was sleeping peacefully, unaffected by the disturbing marks on his body. The image was so vivid, she had to sit down and catch her breath. Surprised by the sudden emotional response, she found herself crying. Ellen was a skeptic. She was interested in relics for their historic value and the cultural importance the item had played. To find herself physically affected by this image shook her to the core. Overwhelmed by sudden and unexpected emotion, her skin felt what the body in the image had experienced. The details showed where whips with small sharp spoons had dug into the body and scooped out pieces of flesh. There were holes in his wrists and feet from the big nails. As she felt his pain, a peace descended upon her, and she joined the powerful man in his meditation. He was absolutely not dead in the image. Instead, it showed him in profound meditation, transcending the intense pain of his body. He was at peace with God and mankind. As she sat there, allowing this beautiful person's aura to fill her own, the image changed. Through her tears, she saw the face on the cloth lift off the flat surface and become three-dimensional. She sensed the incredibly sophisticated technique that had caused this image. The image was preserved not just as a photographic imprint, but as a holographic memory. Her wet face couldn't help but smile at his beauty. If this truly was Jesus Christ imprinted on his burial cloth, he sure was a handsome man. Overwhelmed by what she had seen, she gathered her hands and bowed in deep respect. Lifting her head, she saw the flat image of his ribcage become a rounded chest that breathed. She blinked and steadied herself as this tortured, historically dead man showed himself as a handsome athlete with a mature body. Joining him in his meditation, she transcended with him into another realm beyond time and space. All pain was gone. She felt him taking her with him, floating up into the open space. They existed for a blessed moment together, in love and tranquility, between the dignified stone arches of the Cathedral of St. Sulpice. Making sure she had felt his sublime essence, he gently delivered Ellen back to her stone bench. She was given some time to reunite with her body, before he softly reminded her that it was time to get ready for her train. He stayed with her throughout her travels in France. She felt as if she had an invisible traveling companion next to her, in the seat behind her on the train, in her rental car, always at a polite distance, but always there. After a while, she understood why he stayed with her. He had longed for his beloved for 2,000 years. Ellen provided the perfect vehicle to find her. She had taken in his holographic form and allowed him to vibrate with her, and she was looking for the same woman. Now at the Basilica in Saint Maximin de Saint-Paul, Ellen felt more than a little apprehensive. She reminded herself that she was only here because of her research. Spending a lot of time in the Basilica, she was admiring paintings and gaudy sculpture. She finally had to admit to herself that she was afraid to go down in the crypt. Her recent powerful meeting with a relic made her scared that the next encounter might be more than she could handle. Again, she felt the peaceful presence of the meditating Jesus. He reminded her there was time. Meeting the Shroud of Turin in Paris was a surprise. The object in this cathedral she had traveled very far to find. Ascending the white marble stairs, she let her eyes admire the sarcophagi from the Roman period. Taking a deep breath, she turned and faced the relic she had wanted to see since she had started this research many years ago. The skull was small, even for being of a woman. Some skin was still attached to it, and some hair was still apparent on the top. Ellen shivered. The bone was visible, and the whole thing was brown with age and yellowed with centuries of reverence. Every 22nd of July, it was the center of a parade through town in a golden case that looked like the smiling face of a young, beautiful woman. It was claimed to be the skull of Mary Magdalene. The legend told that Lazarus, her brother, had become bishop of Marseille. The head had been put in his care, and he had built a proper container to protect it. It had stayed in this cathedral since the 13th century. Ellen sat down on the mosaic floor in front of the display case. She looked at the golden platform it sat on and the golden case protecting the back of the head. At first, she just sensed awareness. She could feel another being resonating with her own, recognizing the frequency of the being next to her. She felt their longing, the profound longing of eons of painful separation. Soft chanting emanated from the skull and filled the small crypt. The presence that had joined her, like a ghostly hitchhiker for weeks, joined in with his own sound. Ellen felt herself melting into the floor as she was calibrated by these two spiritual adepts. A question was respectfully put forth to her. It was a formal request for permission to enter her body. Ellen could only nod in agreement. How could you refuse lovers who had been waiting for 2 millennia to reunite? She had no idea what she had agreed to, but felt no fear, only deep compassion for their dilemma. She sat for a while, waiting for something to happen. As she sensed each of them assemble themselves on either side of her, Ellen had a sense that they were slightly more solid than a thought. Something in their fields had changed. She had resonated with their frequencies, their DNA material. His was vibrating in the hologram emanating from the shroud. Hers was present right in front of her in the preserved head. Ellen was the one consciously resonating with them and traveling between these two objects, which after 2,000 years still held their frequencies. Through her, they could now communicate. The tension between their polite, controlled action to protect her and their own joyful anticipation held a taut string in the air. Ellen sank into an even deeper calm. She felt each of her companions stretch out an arm and extend it into her body through the sides of her ribcage. These powerful streams of consciousness formed the shape of 2 hands reaching into her body. She took in air in awe and disbelief. The hands found each other and clasped a handshake inside Ellen's heart. The image Ellen saw was the Claddagh symbol in gold, complete with the crown above the heart. Sitting in the cold stone floor, she was surrounded with a white light that seemed brighter than a sunset. Tears were streaming down her cheek, and she felt the profound gratitude from the newly united couple. She felt the hands retreat and was left in profound meditation. Ellen felt herself expand and unite with everything. In her inner vision, she saw the face of the shroud smile and could hear the giggle of a woman. This must be the true meaning of Hieros Gamos, Ellen thought as she left the cathedral. So there's more. I mean, there's more stories in this book. This is the only story about Ellen. A lot about about your environment, about your life, about what you do. Anyway, I'm not the only one who's going to perform here today. And I'm not the only one who deserves your guys' attention. We have Michaela, am I saying it right?